Welcome to the Exact Digital Podcast, the show where we dive into how digital marketing agencies are using paid media to drive real growth for their clients and for themselves. From planning to ROI and everything in between, we uncover the strategies, stories, and systems that set agencies apart. Each episode, we'll talk with agency leaders who are innovating with paid media, scaling their businesses, and delivering results that matter. Whether you're looking to expand your services or sharpen the edge of your current offerings, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Exact Digital Podcast, the show where we look past the metrics and dive into what truly drives growth in digital advertising. Each episode, we talk with marketing leaders, agency innovators, and industry changemakers to uncover the strategies, stories, and perspectives shaping the next era of marketing. Today's guest is Tony Lyons, the President and Chief Creative Officer of Alphabet, based in Ottawa, Canada. With more than 30 years of experience spanning Canada and Europe, Tony has led award-winning brand, creative, and content marketing programs for major clients in tourism, healthcare, associations, and public sectors. Welcome to the show, Tony. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about Alphabet and the work that you and your team does?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Alphabet, a relatively small firm. We're 25 people. Coincidentally, 25 years old this year, which I can't believe. It's hard for me to actually say that out loud, And over the last maybe 10 of those years, we focused on two main sectors just because we had, some traction in those industries, one being destination and place branding and marketing, and the other being what we call third sector, which encompasses exactly what you said, nonprofit organizations, non-government organizations, NGOs, healthcare, associations, charities, things like that. And for those types of organizations, we do three main things. We do strategy development, we do creative development, and we do technology development. And we try to weave those three things together using everything that we do and every tactic and process, looking at it through the lens of their brand. And that's really sort of what we think is the value of what we bring to the table.
That's awesome. What inspired the name? Like how did you come up with that, and how does that reflect your vision?
Yeah, I mean, how it reflects my vision is, I don't know, it's harder to say really, because it's pithy and fun and stuff like that. And it was a long time ago when I came up with it, long before I actually started the company. As most people who work in advertising will recognize, large organizations, the big WPP and Omnicom and Publicis ones, are generally collections of acronyms or letters, right? So think of BBDO, JWT, TWA, and really what they are is the partners of the firm's initials, right?
Interesting.
So the story came from my friend Walter, and I was working in Dublin at the time, and he went to work for an ad agency called DDFH&B, right? And DDFH&B were acquired by an American firm called DMB&B. And there was a period of time before they changed their name that when I called him, we used to phone on the telephone. Remember those plastic devices we used to use? And I called him, and the receptionist, which is also hilarious to say you had a receptionist, answered the phone, and she said, "Good morning, DMB&B, DDFH&B. How can I help you?" I just thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And at that moment, I said, if I ever own an ad agency, I'm going to call it Alphabet. So all of the letters are included, and it won't matter. And then that just became to be a sort of a simple word that people liked. It's familiar and friendly. And then fast forward probably more than 30 years from that, there's a large company called Google decided to call itself Alphabet as well. And that's a little bit scary. Luckily, we own the trademark for it in Canada only, so we're protected. But, it's been a fun ride.
That's great. That is really funny that you say that with all the letters, because every company culture has their own little acronyms and their own little inside things. So I'm totally laughing because I've also been in the media business a long time, and I've worked
Right.
with many of those agencies with
Oh, yeah.
many alphabet letters in them. So I love it. I love it. What was the moment you said we're a branding consultancy, and like how did that come up? Like, how did you start the company? I know it's been a while, but
Yeah, I mean, it's been a
yeah.
while, and like most organizations, like I'm an illustrator originally. That's when I started.
Ooh,
I started doing TV storyboards and billboards when they were hand drawn. Um, I've always been a writer, even as a kid, though. So when I went into the game initially in the '80s, um, everything was quite analog. There wasn't a lot of digital stuff going on. So when I first started the company, um, it was based off my own skill set, which was creative design, concept development, stuff like that. And I'd been doing that for a number of years before in agency world before I started the company. Um, because of the nature of the clients that we were able to get locally and some nationally, we started to deliver ad campaigns, marketing programs, both digital and traditional, that were based in a lot of strategy work, and we were sort of just giving that strategy work away as part of the concept development. And what we realized was, because of our process is pretty in depth in terms of customer research and asking stakeholders' opinions and stakeholder engagement, we were uncovering a lot of really juicy nuggets for those organizations that they were going, well, I didn't really know any of that stuff, but it's great. Thanks very much. And then they go action on changes in their operations or in their programs based on what we uncovered. And then we sort of said, well, why don't we do that as a service, right? So then we started to sort of like unpack the actual value areas of what we deliver, which is strategy, which is creative, which we're really good at. And then, later on in our development, or in our, journey, technical development, websites, custom applications and custom digital solutions and things like that. And then what really became apparent to me, the light bulb moment, was, well, there's organizations doing strategy, and there's organizations doing implementation, and then there's organizations over here doing digital and web stuff. But really, you should be looking at all of those three things through the lens of brand, which I'm really passionate about. So
yeah.
that sounds a lot like a brand consulting firm, as far as I'm concerned. And it's integrated because what we try to do is uncover the story through research and engagement, put a strategy to where the organization wants to go, and how brand communications and marketing can drive that story, build really good brand narratives and brand experiences through our creative development, and then deliver them digitally, either through marketing or online experiences. So that's what we've been doing for the last, call it, 6 or 7 years of our development, and it's been really successful.
That's awesome. I know you kind of touched on actually those three key areas: strategy, creative, the production side. Do you have any like really great examples where you were able to integrate? You don't have to say the exact client, but you can,
Yeah.
where you kind of pulled all of those things together.
Yeah, one example I can think of is, well, first of all, like brand is an experience, right? It's not something you look at, it's something you experience. And the reason I say experience is that there are touch points all along the customer journey, right? So typically a customer will see or hear something, and then they'll engage with the brand. So that first touch point of engagement is really crucial, because that's the proof point of whether you're delivering on your promise or not. I mean, ultimately, if it's a service or a product, the quality of that product or service is the ultimate delivery. But on your journey to, consideration, engagement, and ultimately conversion, you're nurturing that relationship at every step of the way, which is where organizations like yours and mine play, right? So one example was that was a national nonprofit organization. It's a member association. I'm not sure if they're
Okay.
super common in the States, but we have a more of a collectivist attitude in Canada, so maybe they're more common than than
That's
in the
fun.
States. So the first thing we were doing, they wanted to uncover what the tangible value of the membership was. right? Now, they were doing surveys and, email, newsletters, and all the rest of it, but they really wanted to get down into the qualitative and quantitative measures of how valuable a member felt their relationship with this organization was. So the first thing we did was some stakeholder research, and we asked some really difficult questions about what and how they felt qualitatively, and then what the value of the organization was quantitatively and the services that they delivered. So the results showed that the tangible value was declining. So they felt that they enjoyed the concept of being a member of a networking organization, essentially. But how is that putting dollars in my jeans? Like,
Right.
how's it really good for me? So we did a bit of strategizing with the client, and we realized that there was one particular process that they were doing that was really, really infuriating their members, and it was basically a certification process, right? So it was a 5-year certification process where you had to submit either your work experience or your credentials to a person, like a live person, through email, and then you had to back and forth email with that person. They'd put you on an Excel sheet, and then they'd tell you whether or not you qualified to do an exam or not. And when you did the exam, in however many years, you'd get a credential. So it was hugely labor intensive. So what we did was we basically designed a digital transformation process for that whole thing. And now what happens is that, and we put a really nice looking brand over the top of it too, so it looks and feels and works really well. So now what that looks like is it's basically a touchless process for the member, right? So they will go onto a platform essentially. They'll submit their required credentials. It goes into a CRM. It triggers an email that sends those credentials to. Actually, that part's not an email. It triggers an action that sends those credentials to another system that examines it. It's a yes or no answer. Then they go back into the CRM, and then there's a series of emails that go back and forward with that member to tell them when they're ready to take the online exam. And then we also built the online exam platform. So we looked at that whole thing through the lens of a frictionless, ease of use process. So now the member is getting what they need in a timely fashion. They can see everything in real time on their own dashboard, which is drawn from a profile in the CRM. And the results are great from a tangible point of view. The organization is generating funds like non-dues revenue funds because you have to pay
Yeah.
to take this exam. And the members, from a survey point of view, are super happy because they don't have to email people or wait for phone calls or anything like that. So people might look at that and go, well, that's not a branding initiative. That absolutely is a branding initiative
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's the experience of how that brand um, offers itself to the member. It's essentially the reputation and feeling that member gets is both qualitatively really good and quantitatively really good because it saves them time, which equals money, right? So that's an example of strategy and creative and production that are weaved together and looked at through the lens of brand. And I think if more organizations did that, they'd be in a better shape.
Yeah. I love how you've explained, that brand is so much more than just, your name and logo. It's so much bigger than that. It's the
Yeah.
experience your customers have with you, your members, whoever. So, I mean, I think that's awesome. Of all the services your team provides, which service do you find to be like most underappreciated or misunderstood, and why?
Yeah, I would say it's the uncovering of the story. And I say uncovering because it can't be an invention. If it's an invention, that means it's not true. So it has to be true. And we've developed a really, really simple process for doing that. It's simple when I tell you to actually do it. There's so much underneath it that has to go right that it does become complicated. But we we use a process called the 5 Ps methodology, which we developed ourselves. And it essentially replaces these nonsensical sort of mission, vision, values things that organizations do, because those things are basically a bunch of people sitting in a boardroom, like struggling over commas and dangling participles in a paragraph of text, and no one's ever going to look at that again, right? So what the 5 Ps does is it forces organizations to crystallize a position in a very simple, in its most simple way. So that position is the first P. So positioning is the first P. Like every story, it has multiple angles and avenues, and we call those pillars, right? So you have to, the position has to sit on the pillars. And that just comes from speaking to stakeholders, internal, external, and actually what is it that you do? Like, what do you actually do and what value do you offer, right? So those are the pillars of the story and how we tell that. The second 2 Ps are a little more abstract, and they are passion and proof. And the reason for that is that every human on the planet makes emotional decisions every single day, right? A lot of people will say, I don't make emotional decisions. I make rational decisions. You do not. There is no such thing as a rational decision. Every decision is emotional. Now, there are degrees of emotion and degrees of pragmatism, but every decision is based on passion and proof. The word passion is a little convenient, so we can keep it into the
Right.
key thing. But essentially, that's a way of telling the story, right? I'm
Yeah.
gonna emote to you, but I also have to prove to you that it's true. And you have to have some version of both of those things in the story for people to pick up on it. The 5th P is promotion. And that sounds like marketing, advertising, digital stuff. Really, what that is recognizing who you're talking to and how you're talking to them. So from the position to the pillars to the passion and proof to the promotion is a throughput that basically forces organizations to create what we call a messaging framework. And those messaging frameworks are the key to consistent storytelling over time. And they're not written in stone. The first 2 Ps are, but the rest of it is not. That should be fluid enough to change as with market conditions and time and stuff like that. If you observe that 5 Ps methodology and you do it correctly, you'll end up with a narrative, which is what brands should have. A brand is not just a story that has a singularity. It's a narrative that can appear on any platform in any way relative to the person that you need to speak to. And obviously, not all brands are relevant to everybody, so they're attuned to the 5th P, which is the promotional component for your audiences. So it sounds like you start with the positioning. You actually start with the audiences and work your way backwards.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important, right? Like, and you could be promoting the same thing, but just to a different audience or different
Mhm.
segment. And so it changes a little
Yeah.
bit. But no, that's amazing. Very cool. So with today's rapidly shifting landscape, you've got digital, social,
Yeah.
cultural things going on. What are the biggest brand strategy mistakes you see organizations making?
I would say it's an interesting way to frame that question, because the biggest mistake they're making is not being strategic. They've got what I call SOS, which is shiny object syndrome. Um, like there's so many ways that you can reach your customers now, various different digital channels. And now with AI and how easy it is to use it and to create, messaging and texts, and with the Canva GPT integration now, images, graphic images and stuff like that. I think that marketing people are just spinning. They don't really, they've lost sight of the strategy, and they've adopted this Gary Vaynerchuk approach of, muzzle velocity, flood the zone. You need to do 1,000 pieces of content a week. You do not need to do that. You do not. If you're Coca-Cola, you might. But if you're a normal business, which is most businesses, you don't. you need to stick to your core principles, and you need to, if marketing is a process of selection and exclusion, you need to pick the thing that's right for you because you can't do everything, you know? And I think you need to be consistent about that. It's our opinion that, yeah, we are enabled to do more pieces of content and more pieces of advertising with new technologies. That's great. But it still needs to be quality content, and it still needs to be relevant to your user and based on the core principles of your brand. It still needs to follow that 5 Ps methodology. Otherwise, I don't know what people are doing. I really don't, you
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. That it can get lost if you're just trying to do too many things and so no, I it's wild. It's a wild world out
It's
there.
a wild
It's
it's
a
a
wild
wild world we're living in.
Yeah, for
What a
real, for
time to
real.
be alive.
I know, I know. Well, and just marketing in general has continues to evolve and will continue to
Yeah.
evolve, and you've gotta figure out what makes the most sense for you, your brand, your consumer. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your team. Like, how do you foster creativity and strategic thinking with your team at Alphabet?
Well, anybody who's been to ad school or marketing school or design school will probably have had a professor or a teacher that told them about the surprise and delight. Whenever a consumer sees a piece of marketing, whether it's digital or whatever, they need to be surprised and it needs to delight them. And what they're really talking about that is that it needs to have some form of kind of like a cognitive dissonance to it. The reason being that if you see something that's super familiar, it won't challenge you in any way. And it just literally goes in one ear and out the other. You'll see it, but you won't notice it. So what advertisers and marketers are replacing that surprise and delight with is they're replacing it with volume. So I'm not going to follow you around and I'm going to talk to you 150 times a day, as opposed to 2 times in that day that really resonated with me, right? So
Yeah.
what we tried to do is to create messages and pieces of design, pieces of advertising, pieces of marketing that um, are based on this concept that um, we view the world as our brains view the world through patterns. Pattern recognition is really, 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 really important. And there's tons of research about this. I'm not making it up. If there's no pattern, we will invent a pattern to rationalize the world around us. That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
We talked about decisions earlier on. We make about 35,000 decisions every day as people. 35,000, and like the vast majority of them are unconscious decisions, right? So we've just created this pattern recognition to help us get through the complexity of life, right? So what really good advertising does is it's familiar enough and it has enough patterns that you will go, okay, you're not a threat to me. You're not a stranger in my tribe, but you're weird enough that I'm going to think about you twice,
Yeah.
right? And it,
Yeah.
it creates a thought loop that I get it, but I don't get it. And I'm going to think about it until I get it. And that's what really, really good advertising does. It challenges our assumptions, but not in a way that's going to turn us off, just enough to bring us in. And then once you're in that lean in engaged moment, now you have an actual chance to have a real engaging conversation with that customer. But it takes courage. It really does. Because if you see something as a client and you don't recognize it, your immediate reaction will be, I don't like it because I don't recognize it because I don't see the pattern.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
bravery. It really does take bravery. But if you look at all of the big successful brands in the world, they're all brave. All of them are brave, right? They've all done things that have challenged your assumptions or my assumptions to gain my trust and allow me into their tribe, because I'm a tribe that, or I'm now in a group of people that are somehow special, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting.
I love that. Um, so if you could wave a magic wand and solve one major marketing challenge for all organizations globally, what would it be? What's something that
obviously world peace, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh,
If if my magic wand is so say my magic wand is a Harry Potter magic wand, like not a Voldemort magic wand, so I'm a good guy. So what I would say would be to crystallize the vision or the positioning in as simple a way as possible, right? Then to adapt that positioning, to personalize it to every single customer so that they can see themselves in that position. And then to give them just enough of content, advertising, touch points so that they now feel that they're familiar with you and you're giving them value without annoying them, right? And then the last part is that all of that process is super fluid. There's no friction in it. There's ease of use, and it's the exact perfect amount, both from an emotion and a proof and a volume standpoint. That there's nothing I can do except to engage with you as a brand. And there's a lot of organizations, Adobe, I'm sure, say they can do it. They can't. HubSpot say they can do it. They can't. It's really, really difficult. It's very, very
yeah.
difficult. But if the magic wand existed, that's what I would do. But then I'd be out of a job, so I don't want that magic.
So don't wave that magic wand too
No.
hard, right? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything you'd want to add to the conversations?
One of the questions was, "What's my favorite brand?" I thought,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's a really hard question," but I thought about it. And right now, because it changes, as you go
Yeah,
through, but it's
yeah.
been this for a while. There's a brand of shoe out of Spain called Camper shoes,
Oh, I'm
and
gonna have to check it out.
and the reason I like them is that they have basically have a visual identity to them that you can recognize a camper shoe on anybody, no matter what. But they have hundreds and hundreds of variations of shoes. So they've figured out how their core identity manifests itself in multiple different ways. That's one part. The second part is from a digital marketing perspective, they are so, so advanced and good that I am a sucker. Like they know me in and out. And I am just like, I buy like way too many of their shoes all the time. And then the third part is the quality is really, really good. So they've figured out identity, experience, and product quality. And to me, that's the trifecta of a really good brand.
That's awesome. I'm really going to have to. Is it guys and girls
Yes,
shoes? Is it
men and women.
okay?
And they go from like, you know, they're not normal. They're always a little bit odd, but they're
Yeah.
not crazy to like completely wacky. But you can see the design
Interesting.
motif throughout. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I love it, and I'm gonna have to go check it out, and it's probably gonna start showing up in my algorithms now
It's true.
anyways, so that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for joining us, and for those of you who are tuning in, if you wanna learn more about Alphabet and their team, you can log on to alphabetcreative.com, or you can follow them over on LinkedIn. And, just thanks again for watching this episode brought to you by Exact Digital, your dedicated partner for performance-driven media from programmatic display, CTV, paid social, search, and beyond. Let us know how we can help you. Have a great day. Thank you for joining.